This voice is artificial, but the ideas are real. Welcome to AI Podcast. Now, let's begin.
Imagine a man. He lives in a small town in Indiana, works a totally normal job as a pharmacy tech at CVS, filling prescriptions, processing family photos, just completely mundane. And for 5 years, after this brutal, unsolved crime just rocks his entire community, Richard Allen goes to work every single day.
Serving the very families of the girls who were murdered.
He even processed their memorial photos, sometimes wouldn't even charge them for it.
It's an incredibly unnerving image, isn't it? Someone so deeply, integrated into the tragedy that he himself caused.
Right.
And that's really the duality we have to confront here with the Delphi murders. This life of utter banality that was masking a just catastrophic secret.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to go beyond just the conviction. Yes, Richard Allen was found guilty, but getting to that verdict was, well, it was anything but simple.
It really wasn't.
We're going to explore the whole complexity of the evidence, how this case was solved not by some brilliant forensic breakthrough, but really by an accident, a forgotten note.
A clerical error.
And how all that evidence, once they finally found it, presented this really challenging, sometimes contradictory picture.
It's like when you synthesize all the trial testimony, the leaks, the psych evils of Allen, the whole case starts to look like a shattered mirror.
A shattered mirror. I like that.
Yeah. You've got these massive, clear pieces that reflect, undeniable guilt. The bullet, the jacket, his own admissions. But then you look at the edges at all those little hidden shards, and the image gets really distorted. You see conflicting witness descriptions, these bizarre digital anomalies.
And the confessions made by a man who was having a complete psychological breakdown in solitary confinement.
Exactly. So our job here is to try and assemble all those shards and see the whole complicated picture.
So we have to start where the story began. A cold February afternoon in 2017 when Abby Williams, who was 13, and Libby German, 14, just vanished from the Monon High Bridge. Let's unpack that timeline.
The location and the timeline are absolutely crucial. They show just how small the window of opportunity was for the killer.
And this bridge, the Monon High Bridge, it's basically a trap, right?
It's an old abandoned railroad trestle. It's long, it's narrow, and it's high above Deer Creek. It essentially funnels you. Once you're out on it, there's nowhere to go.
You're stuck.
Precisely. So the girls get dropped off of the trail by Libby's older sister, Kelsey, at 1:49 p.m. on Monday, February 13th. They had the day off school.
Just a normal day. We know Libby even called her dad just before that, at 1:38, to set up a pickup time.
Right. Establishing that expectation of safety. They thought they had a set time frame for their walk.
And the last proof of life we have is what, about half an hour later?
It's at 2:07 p.m. Libby posts a Snapchat photo. It's of Abby walking on the bridge. That's the moment they're completely isolated.
And investigators believe the confrontation with the killer, with Richard Allen, happened just 6 minutes later.
Around 2:13 p.m.
6 minutes, that's all it was. The time between a normal teenage photo and the moment everything just changed.
And this is where we have to talk about Libby German, what she did in that moment. She is rightly called a hero for it.
She knew something was wrong.
She knew. She recognized the danger in the man walking toward them. And she had this incredible presence of mind to pull out her phone and start secretly recording him.
That recording is the spine of this entire case. It's just a 43-second clip, but it shows Bridge Guy walking towards them.
And more importantly, it has the audio, that chilling audio of him just commanding them, guys, down the hill.
The prosecution used that as the definitive proof of kidnapping, right? The moment he took control.
Yes, it's the moment he forces them off the bridge down into that secluded ravine. Without that recording, given the lack of forensics, this case would have been virtually impossible to solve.
And what happened next is just as unsettling. Their bodies were found the next day, February 14th.
In the woods near Deer Creek, only about 0.2 miles from the bridge. It happened fast.
But the scene itself, there were strange, almost theatrical details.
Very unusual staging. There was this deliberate and bizarre switching of their clothing. Libby was found nude. But Abby, she was fully clothed in Libby's jeans and sweatshirt.
And both of them were covered with tree branches and sticks.
Right. It implies this disorganized or maybe panicked set of actions right after the murders. It's certainly not an attempt to hide the bodies.
No, not at all. So you have these two competing things happening.
You do. On one hand, he uses the creek to wash away evidence. He's trying to eliminate DNA, and for the most part, he was successful. They didn't find any testable DNA or usable fingerprints.
So that part is methodical. He's thinking clearly enough to try and scrub the scene forensically.
But then you have the sticks, the clothing swap. That's a post-mortem manipulation that doesn't really serve a practical purpose.
And that's the kind of detail that creates a vacuum, isn't it? Which the defense tried to fill.
Oh, absolutely. That's where the whole Odinist cult theory came from in the pretrial motions, which the judge ended up barring.
Right. They were arguing the staging, the sticks, it all pointed to some kind of ritualistic killing.
Exactly. That it wasn't just Richard Allen, that he was part of some larger group. And because there was no clean DNA link, theories like that could fester. It sent investigators down thousands of dead ends for years.
And the whole time, the actual solution to the case was just sitting in a cardboard box.
The psychological weight that Richard Allen must have carried for those 5 years.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to get your head around. He was the definition of hiding in plain sight.
And not just hiding. He's interacting with the community. At his job at CVS, he's a pharmacy tech.
Which is relevant.
So relevant. He works with gloves, he uses box cutters, tools that might have been very useful in committing a crime like this and, getting rid of evidence.
It's this deep, dark irony. He was the picture of normalcy. But looking back, investigators did notice these little signs of stress, like he changed his height on his fishing license.
From what to what?
From 5'4" to 5'6".
What?
A tiny detail. But it speaks to a man who saw the blurry bridge guy photo everywhere and was suddenly very aware of how his own physical stats might line up.
But the real break in the case didn't come from a new lead. It came from Richard Allen himself.
Just 3 days after the murders, on February 16th, 2017, he voluntarily contacted an officer.
He walked in and put himself on that trail, on that bridge, during the exact window of the murders.
It seems insane, right, for a man who just committed a double murder.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the context.
The police had made a mistake.
A huge one. They told the media the bridge guy photo came from a trail camera, not a phone.
A fixed camera, so he thinks he's just some guy who got caught on a security cam.
Exactly. So his motivation was probably calculated. Report himself, say, hey, that might be me, I was there, and get cleared. Protect his cover before anyone could identify him.
A proactive move to stay invisible.
And it almost worked. This critical, self-incriminating piece of evidence was buried for 5 years because of a mundane, just disastrous clerical error.
The report was misfiled? How did that even happen?
The officer logging the tip.
Yeah.
And you have to remember they were getting thousands. He wrote down Richard Allen Whiteman, the name of his street, Whiteman Road. So when anyone searched the database for Allen, nothing came up. And to make it worse, the report was stamped cleared.
Unbelievable. So a single typo buried the case for half a decade.
It sat in a banker's box. The whole thing was cracked in September 2022 by a volunteer file clerk, Kathy Shank. She was just helping organize the backlog, found the misfiled tip, and made the connection.
So it wasn't DNA, it wasn't a confession, it was a dedicated volunteer finding a 5-year-old piece of paper.
And once that connection was made, things moved very, very fast. When police served the search warrant in October 2022, his reaction, it said everything.
That's when he said, it doesn't matter, it's all over.
He said it twice. It's the sound of a man who had been expecting that knock on the door every single minute for 5 years. The dam just broke.
But even then, in his initial interview, he was still trying to control the story. He claimed he was on the trail trading stocks on his phone.
A story that didn't hold up for a second. The digital forensics showed his phone never pinged any cell towers nearby during that time.
So he was lying. He had his phone off, or he was hiding it.
And the phone he would have been using in 2017. It was never recovered. They seized over 20 other cell phones from his house, but not that one.
A huge red flag. He methodically got rid of the key piece of digital evidence.
Which brings us to the physical evidence they did find. The evidence that tied him directly to the scene.
The magic bullet, as the defense called it.
Right. It was the prosecution's most powerful piece of physical evidence. An unspent, unfired .40 caliber bullet found at the scene.
Lying on the ground between the two girls.
Less than 2 feet from one of them.
Okay, so help me and our listener understand this, because it's a bit technical. How can an unfired bullet be traced back to a specific gun?
That is the critical question. It's not about the firing of the gun, it's about the cycling of the weapon.
Meaning?
Allen owned a Sig Sauer P226 pistol. To get a round into the chamber on a semi-automatic, you have to pull back the slide. That's called racking the gun. When you do that, a tiny metal part called the extractor grabs the brass casing of the bullet to pull it into place. If you then eject that live round without firing it, the extractor has already left microscopic, unique scratches on the brass.
Like a fingerprint.
Exactly. A fingerprint for the firearm. And the forensic experts testified that the extraction marks on that unspent bullet found at the scene were a perfect match to Richard Allen's gun.
And he had no explanation for how it got there.
None. He said he never lent the gun to anyone. And later, he actually confessed to his psychologist that he did rack the gun on the bridge and believed he lost the round right there.
So his own confession backs up the physical evidence?
It does. The defense tried to mock it, call it the magic bullet, but the science was sound. That bullet placed his specific gun at the murder scene. It was the linchpin.
And beyond the bullet, you have all the circumstantial stuff, the jacket.
Right. He admitted to wearing a blue or black Carhartt jacket. Police found a blue one at his home that matched the bridge guy photo.
And his car was spotted on video heading toward the trails at 1:27 p.m.
Just minutes before the girls arrived. And then you have a witness, Sarah Carbaugh, who saw a man leaving the area later, around 3:56 p.m.
And she described him as what?
Muddy and bloody, wearing a blue jacket and jeans. The timing fits perfectly with Allen committing the crime, trying to clean up in the creek, and then fleeing.
But this is where that shattered mirror analogy comes back in, because for every witness like that, there's another one pointing a completely different direction.
Absolutely. Other witnesses saw different cars, like a purple PT Cruiser, vehicles that were never linked to Allen.
And the most significant one, the witness Betsy Blair, who saw the man on the bridge. Her description just doesn't fit Richard Allen at all.
Not even close. She described the man as boyish and youthful, with brown poofy hair. She put him in his 20s or 30s.
And Allen was 44 with short hair. That's a huge discrepancy.
A huge one. And the defense seized on it. They argued, if you believe the eyewitnesses, you have to exclude our client.
So the jury has to weigh a traumatic, fleeting memory against the hard science of the bullet.
And that's not the only contradiction. The digital timeline from Libby's phone raises even more questions.
The digital anomalies? This part is really strange. There was activity on her phone hours after the murders were supposed to have happened.
Yes, and the prosecution never really had a great answer for it at 5:45 p.m. that day.
When search parties were already out looking for them.
Exactly. At 5:45, the phone's log shows a headphone being plugged into the audio jack, and it stays plugged in for nearly 5 hours.
That implies a deliberate human interaction with the phone.
It certainly does. And then, at 4:33 the next morning, the phone connects to a cell tower and receives messages.
Meaning it was powered on or at least moved into an area with a signal.
Right. So if Allen killed them and was gone by 4 p.m., as the muddy and bloody witness suggests, who was interacting with the phone at 5:45 p.m.?
It implies a second person, or that the crime scene was revisited?
The prosecution argued it could have been, glitches. The phone was found in the creek under Abby's body, and water damage could cause weird short circuits.
But the defense expert said the headphone log was too specific to be random damage.
And it leaves this powerful, lingering doubt. Even if Allen was the killer, was he truly alone? It's one of the most mysterious and unresolved shards of the whole case.
And that takes us from the physical evidence to the psychological. Because Richard Allen's mind, which kept this secret locked away so perfectly for 5 years, it fractured completely once he was arrested.
It was a total collapse. And his confessions, especially to his prison psychologist, Dr. Monica Walla, they give us this terrifying glimpse into his state of mind.
He admitted his initial plan was not murder.
Correct. His primary motivation, he said, was sexual assault. He went there with his gun for intimidation, and he also had a box cutter.
A tool from his job.
Right. He chose the bridge for its isolation. It was a controlled environment. But then something happened that made him pivot.
He got scared.
He got scared by a passing white van. And that triggered this immediate, desperate shift from sexual assault to murder. He panicked about being seen.
He said he needed to silence them.
Yes. He said he made sure that they were dead, so they couldn't identify him.
And that detail, the white van, that was a key piece of non-public information, wasn't it?
It was huge. Investigators confirmed that a local resident named Brad Weber did drive a white van past the trail around that exact time. Allen's spontaneous memory of that van was powerful evidence for the prosecution.
A detail only the killer would know.
It suggests that the moment of panic was just burned into his memory, even while other details of his cover-up were, lost to denial or time.
All that pressure he held in for 5 years. It explains what happened when he was put in solitary confinement.
The sources describe his mind like a dam that looks solid, but the arrest and the isolation caused a total catastrophic breach. He was in a one-man cell 24 hours a day for months.
Which became the core of the defense's argument. They said the solitary confinement induced psychosis, that he was confessing to things he didn't do.
And the logs from the correctional officers are deeply disturbing. They support that claim. He was banging his head on the walls, eating his own feces, drinking from the toilet.
Just extreme psychotic behavior.
So it makes his confessions incredibly difficult to parse. He confessed over 60 times. To officers, to his psychologist, to his wife on recorded calls.
And some of those confessions had those undeniable, incriminating details. The van slashing their throats, covering the bodies with branches.
But then, in the same breath, he'd make these wildly false admissions. He'd confessed to molesting people he didn't know. He claimed he'd killed his own family and grandchildren, who were all alive and well.
Which is the defense's point. If he's confessing to killing people who are still alive, how can you trust any of it?
Exactly. And the phone calls with his wife, Kathy, are just heartbreaking. She's on the phone telling him, "No, you didn't do it. You're not well."
And what was his response?
He just sounds broken. He says, "I don't want to upset you anymore. Tell the investigators to come get me. I will tell them whatever they want me to."
Like a man who just wants it all to be over, one way or another.
It's this impossible situation for a jury. Is he a psychotic man admitting to a real crime he committed? Or is he just a psychotic man inventing everything?
Before we get to the trial's outcome, we have to mention Keegan Kline. He was this other dark thread that, for years, confused everything.
He really did. Keegan Kline used a fake social media profile, Anthony Schatz, to communicate with Libby before she died. He was catfishing and extorting young girls.
So the natural assumption for the public was, this has to be the guy. The digital predator must be the physical predator.
He was investigated more thoroughly than Alan was at first, and he was eventually sentenced to 40 years for child exploitation.
But this is the crucial part. There was no link to Richard Allen.
None whatsoever. After years of investigation, police found no connection between them. Kline was a separate, independent threat that just happened to tragically intersect with one of the victims.
Which is so important to understand. The girls were facing dangers from multiple unrelated directions, the online world and the physical world.
Which leads us to the trial itself. All of this evidence, the bullet, the jacket, the lost and found tip, the confessions, it built a very compelling, if complicated, case.
The trial finally started in October 2024, 7 years after the murders.
And the defense fought hard to get it moved, arguing that the intense media coverage made a fair local trial impossible.
But the motions were denied.
They were. And in November 2024, the jury came back with a guilty verdict on all counts. Richard Allen was sentenced to 130 years in prison.
But the legal resolution, it doesn't end the human cost, does it? We have to talk about the burden the families have carried, especially Libby's sister, Kelsey German.
Kelsey has been a tireless advocate. She was 17 when she dropped her sister off that day. She's now 23. She spent her entire young adulthood fighting for this.
And she's been very open about the toll it's taken, especially on her memory.
She admitted that the trauma has blurred her own recollections. She struggles to separate what she actually remembers from what she's learned by reading thousands of pages of police files over the years.
It's like she was forced to become an expert on her own family's tragedy.
She was. And she had to constantly fight the tide of public misinformation, which she said was just this huge, unnecessary drain.
The Delphi case really became a magnet for online sleuths and speculation.
She talked about her frustration with viral rumors, like one that an arrest had been made, which spread while she was on a plane. The second she landed, she had to do damage control.
Because it makes people think the case is solved and they stop looking.
Exactly. And it swamps the police with useless tips. She said they were sorting through the same debunked tips sent in 20 times a year for 6 years. It makes that initial clerical error almost seem inevitable. They were just drowning in noise.
So her message is really about being responsible with information.
Yes. Only share what's verified by the family or law enforcement. And she specifically asked people to keep sending in tips about that Anthony Schatz account, just in case there's still something there.
Her advocacy ensures that even with a conviction, the full, complex story of this crime doesn't get forgotten.
So when we put that shattered mirror back together, what do we have? Richard Allen's conviction stands on a really strong foundation of circumstantial evidence.
The bullet, the jacket, him putting himself at the scene.
The voice match, and the confessions containing non-public details like the white van. It all reinforces itself.
But the complexity is still there. The disturbing contradictions remain. No DNA, the weird digital activity on Libby's phone, and that witness description of a boyish killer.
The conviction answers the legal question of who. But the case will always be, This textbook study in contradiction.
So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Richard Allen was a pharmacy technician. He was trained in hygiene, he was around gloves, he used sharp tools like box cutters. He managed to commit this brutal double murder in broad daylight and leave behind almost zero forensic evidence. He showed incredible competence and control in the moment.
But he's completely undone by two things. A 5-year-old clerical error found by chance, and a moment of pure panic over a passing van.
Does his ability to execute the crime so efficiently, followed by that total catastrophic mental breakdown in custody, does it just confirm the massive internal pressure he was under, that when the secret was finally out, his mind just shattered?
Or does it hint at something deeper? A man who could completely compartmentalize the act, live a double life for 5 years, but whose mind was always destined to collapse under the weight of that horrific, isolated reality he kept inside. His competence made him invisible, but his fragility is what led to his confession. It's a paradox of control and chaos.